question was, how did I end up in banking? And the answer was almost by accident. I was in the Certified General Accountants program. My goal was to get my accounting designation, which I did get, and I was going to run an accounting department. And in fact, I was running an accounting department in a small branch of a foreign bank. And my boss at the time came to me and asked me if I would be interested in trying lending, which is what I did. And I spent 35 years as a lender, as a business lender.
So
I loved it. So
as a lender, you'd probably develop relationships with people in those companies, right?
So I talked earlier that as you go through your career, and I see it with my children now, you're going to be given opportunities. They're going to ask you to do things which will take you out of your comfort zone. And in this case, my comfort zone was I was an accountant, working as an accountant, and to go into lending, I had to pick up the phone and make cold calls and introduce myself and ask for business. And I decided to do it and actually learn to like it. But that was leaving my comfort zone. And because I was prepared to leave my comfort zone, it led to a very fulfilling career.
So your comfort zone was working with numbers. Is that what you're saying?
But my comfort zone was sitting at a desk and not, I'm a little more reserved. And my comfort zone was not going up to a stranger and introducing myself and asking them for business. But I learned to do it.
So how old were you when you made that shift? How old were you?
20, maybe 27, 28.
Oh.
Yeah, no, 27 or 28. And my son now, who's much more outgoing than I am, is in a marketing role. And for him, it comes naturally. He just walks in and introduces himself and does it. So for him, it's not leaving the comfort zone, but for me, it was. And my daughter, who's a similar personality to me, is a teacher, and she's now a department head and has to make presentations. And so she's had to leave her comfort zone to do that. And you as a pastor have maybe had to do it as well. I'm sure there's times as a pastor, you've left your comfort zone.
Oh yeah.
Every day.
Yeah, I would never have imagined doing this when I graduated high school.
No.
Never.
So it's not I guess my point is, if you want to advance within an organization and have a fulfilling career, sometimes, not always, sometimes you have to be prepared to leave your comfort zone. And people will give you opportunities, and you've got to be prepared to take that challenge on.
Yeah, I agree with Bob. I've done many different things in my life, and one of them was educating teachers and training teachers. And I remember when I was first invited to do this, I was then working as a teacher of English back in Mexico, working with in high school or with young adults or older adults. And one of my bosses, because I had many different jobs, I worked for different schools. One of my bosses said, Rosa, we're having these workshops for teachers, and one of the facilitators canceled last minute. Can you please jump in? And I had never done a training for teachers before. So as teachers or instructors, we can be very, very critical, right? So when you're thinking, I'm going to be training teachers, and some of them are going to be older than me, or maybe some of them were even my teachers back in high school, I had a second of panic there, like, no, I cannot do this. And she said, of course you can, you're really good, come on. So you don't necessarily have to do the same topic. They were working on this and that. The topic has to be related because it's in the program. We have to cover this and other things. And what do you think? And I said, okay. So I spent probably 3 long afternoons. They allowed me to use some of their spaces because I do a lot of hands-on work, and I was doing a workshop because this was a 4-hour workshop, okay? So I prepared lots and lots of materials. It turned out that I had to do a training for 100 teachers in a huge room. And this had to be part presentation, part workshop. And I thought, okay, let's do this. And it worked. I did it. And, eventually this same boss said, you know what, we would like to have you in our center. And eventually they talked to the rector at the university then and said, propose that I have a full time with them as a teacher. And it eventually came through. And from there, I jumped to doing my master's, got a scholarship. So those are sometimes things that you would think small, you're like, but you never know where life is going to take you. And I think, as Bob was saying, if you step out of your comfort zone and you take a risk, of course, you work hard and you prepare. It's not like I stood in front of those 100 people and improvised. And then I found out that I loved doing teacher training. It was a really nice audience, actually, because they really want to do it. We're different to high school because you almost have to keep these kids from the neck in the class, right? Like they don't want to do it. So yeah, I think I totally agree with Bob. Stepping out of your comfort zone is definitely the way to go. Yeah, you might have to bump yourself into a wall. It happened to me many times, and I'm sure it will continue to happen, but it's worth it.
Yeah, me too. I had lots of phones slammed in my ear, but you learn to do it.
Yeah,
You have to deal with rejection.
it's tough.
Yeah, you have to deal with rejection.
What did you tell yourself when that happened? How did you continue? Here comes Jeremy.
I don't know. It never really bothered me. I just kept on going.
It's just another person.
Yeah, I mean, you understand why they don't want to talk to you. I mean, I don't want to belabor this point, but when you're in sales, what you're selling is nothing particularly special. A bank is a bank is a bank. What you're selling is a relationship, and it takes time to build that.
Yeah. Jeremy, can you hear us? We can't see you.
Yes, I don't have a camera with me right now.
Okay.
But I am here. Hi.
I'm glad you're here.
Hi, Jeremy.
Did you get a screaming deal at Sport Check?
Hi, Jeremy.
Yeah. I actually didn't buy much, but Nathan did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are you all right with us recording this session?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've heard a bit from Bob and Rosa Maria, and maybe the same question we could have Maureen respond to.
Okay, what's the question again?
It's kind of like the first one. Why did you choose this path, or how did you end up with this work? I'll put it in the chat again.
I don't know how I chose to be a nurse. My mother was a nurse. She never encouraged me or discouraged me. In high school, I was always interested in, I was a candy striper, and I found that very rewarding. And my mother,
candy striper is?
We volunteer at the hospital. We wore these red and white striped uniforms and went around to the different wards and talked to people and brought them things. And that was, yeah. Then after I graduated high school, I took first aid, which I enjoyed too, but there was no real, well, I had a temporary job in it. So then I decided to go to nursing school and graduated about 35 years ago. So the last 20 years I worked in community health, which maybe the young people may not know as much about community health as a hospital nurse, and also too in my career, I did a lot of different nursing, from small hospital to surgical to maternity to adults to all kinds of things, different wards.
What was your favorite?
I don't know, they were all different and I enjoyed them differently. I enjoyed the community you have less control when you're a community nurse because you're meeting people on their home territory.
Mm.
So if they don't want you to come in, you leave. In a hospital, our patients are kind of at our mercy. We put them in these gowns, strip away all their dignity, and they just, yeah, have to do what they're told, basically, or they leave.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's totally different in the community. So thing about nursing is, one thing I enjoyed is always something to learn if you want to. So towards the end of my career, well, even most of my career, I was always interested in geriatrics, which is nursing with elders. And so I did a specialty in geriatrics, and a lot of my community work, not all, it was working with adults with chronic disabilities or illnesses, or frail elders who needed support, and for them and their families. We worked with the families just as much as our patients. So helping them with health teaching, health literacy, connecting with doctors when they needed to, doing care planning, providing supports like home supports or nurses' aides to come in and give them a bath or shower, or changing their dressings or whatever was needed, or sometimes helping them move to a different level of care when they needed that too. So
Yeah.
every day, every single day was something different. So that's one of the things I enjoyed about it. The other thing, I met so many amazing people, especially staff I worked with, or colleagues. Just, oh my goodness, a bunch of caring people. And nurses and occupational therapists, physiotherapists, pharmacists, dietitians, the whole gamut in our offices, right? Nurse practitioners, geriatric doctors. Yeah, so that's my career in a nutshell,
You know,
I think.
thank you. I've been thinking about what Bob said, and Rosa Marie also talked about stepping out of your comfort zone. And one of the things I've been learning about the nature of God, as I study something called process theology these days, is that God is defined as adventurous.
Mm.
You may not have grown up thinking about God as adventurous and one who's willing to take risk. So the next question I'm thinking about asking is, in what way do you see God? If God is adventurous, willing to take risk, in what way do you see God, if at all, involved in the process of you either becoming what you ended up doing, or helping you in your daily work?
As an adventurous.
Yeah, if God is defined as adventurous, willing to take risk, coming alongside us so that we can do the same.
Well, there were many times where, yeah, I'm kind of sitting there challenged with whatever was going on.
With the patients that you were serving?
Patients, or yeah, or somebody's going sour, or yeah, or I was at the desk kind of trying to organize everybody's work schedule. And so I guess it's sometimes you feel like you can't cope with it all, and you just say, okay, God, I'm here, gotta help me with this. And then somehow you deal with it and you get through it.
I have a question for you, Maureen.
Yes.
Speaking of like difficulties, did you find it like difficult at all to like transition before, like in between the different phases that you had in your career?
Yes.
Like you said, there were like many kind of different fields that you worked in.
Yeah. I always enjoyed learning, so I would always look for study opportunities.
Oh, okay.
A lot of good mentors that I had to make it possible. Yeah. especially when I went into community. And then I became a mentor, and then I helped develop some programs like when we brought in doing intravenous's in the community that we'd never done before. Yeah,
I see.
there
Okay.
was always something new.
Jeremy, do you want to ask the same question of Rosa Maria and Bob?
Oh yeah. Sorry for being late. I kind of missed out on their
That's okay.
speeches.
I mean, that'd be a good question for both of you too.
So I've had many different hats in my life, and I guess the hats are going to keep changing. I've done all kinds of different things. I think the learning curve for me is a motivation. The challenge, as Maureen was saying, keeps me going. I need to feel that I'm growing in what I'm doing.
Sure.
If I feel stagnant, I feel like I don't have more to give. So one of the things that has really helped me is my colleagues. I've had all kinds of people, you know, sometimes you run into the best mentor colleague, and sometimes you're working next to the enemy, whatever you want to call it. And sometimes you can be discouraged by that. But for me, it's a challenge of learning and learning with others. That has helped me a lot. I've done training in between jobs, or sometimes I've done training when I started a different job because I wanted to be prepared. And I think that I have found that hanging on to something bigger than me has helped me to move through it many times when I have felt I cannot go any further. And to be honest, sometimes what pushes you to go back to work is that you don't have another job that's fulfilling, but you have to pay the bills and your kids have to eat.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's very different when you are studying, when you're at school, then in general, most of your needs are covered. That's a very different thing as to when you step out and you have to be responsible for yourself and then for tiny ones, right? Like your children or other people in your family. And that has definitely been an engine behind me, you know, knowing that I have to respond to my family's needs. So I would say love. Yes.
Well, Rosa Maria, were you first trained as a medical doctor in Mexico and then you went into teaching?
Yeah.
How did that transition happen for you?
Oh, well, I would say it was just happened. I mean, I had been invited to teach English in my high school just because I knew a language, and I was like, no, I don't want to be a teacher. Nah. But to tell you the truth, when I was close to graduating from high school, I always wanted to go into psychology. But for some reason, the instructor, the teacher in high school that we had for the psychology course was a disaster as a teacher. We actually had to get together as a group because I was always kind of a rebel. So talked to classmates and said, this is a fraud of a teacher. We can't have him. We were in a public school and there was a lot of political interest. He was a brother of somebody. But 6 called classmates and myself. We went and talked to the principal in the school. He says, we don't want this person. He's not coming to class. And when he comes, he doesn't do anything. And the principal was like, girls, you're getting me in trouble, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. And then they gave us a second teacher. And yeah, he actually pushed us pretty hard because we have to cover everything. But that somehow, you know, some of the taste was gone. And then my best friend in high school said she was going to medical school. And pretty much I just went with her. No, I followed my friend. I liked it. I mean, I liked it whenever they did the vocational, those tests that they do on you, it would always come humanities, like medicine, nursing, that kind of stuff, right? So yeah, I went in, it was brutal, homo, yeah. And I graduated from school and I did my social service in a rural community. I could have done my social service in the city because I had a pretty good grade, but I chose to go out on the rural community. And I was working by myself in a small center, no nurse. I had to do everything. And it was challenging. It was great working with people. And that's when I started discovering how much I enjoyed talking to people and working with others, because I had to give talks to moms in the rural area and do vaccination campaigns and convince the women to be sterilized, to have their operation. It was amazing. So anyways, I finished my career, started working as a doctor. But one of the jobs I had was for the municipal department in my municipality. And a teacher of mine from the school invited me to work with him. This was a new party that had won the presidency, the county, whatever. And he invited me to work with him. And this was like a public health. And I really, really liked it. But I was never good at politics. And somewhere in the middle of that job, I was punched pretty hard. I almost lost my job and was taken off the main charge that I had there, my position. They cut my salary in half as well. And I had just had my second baby. So it kind of fit because I was working like crazy, right? And I actually went back to my high school to organize sexual education and drug addiction talks. And the principal said, "Oh, it's good that you came. This and that, we're looking for you. We have a new program. We need a lot of teachers because the curriculum is changing. I'm glad you're here." And I said, no, sorry. I'm here because I'm working with the municipal government and we are running a public health campaign for teenagers. "Oh yeah, okay." So we put the dates together for us to go and give the talk. He says, "But you have to go and talk to teacher Emma, because she wants to talk to you. We have this and that." And before I knew it, I was working in that high school part-time. And I did my other job part-time. And when the municipal government finished and somebody else won, they just kicked us out like nothing, bye-bye. And I was already working for a public university. It was a transition. It was just accidental, you want to call it? Yeah. And that's where my teaching career started. And I love it.
Right. So you realized your talent because you were put into a position you wouldn't have chosen initially.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Bob, did you want to respond to the similar line of questioning or no?
Sure. I'll try and keep it brief. So like Rosemary, I worked for 2 companies over 37 years, but had lots of jobs within the companies. And I have a terrible, they talk about the 7-year itch. Well, I've got the 7-year itch. I'm good in one job for about 6 or 7 years, and then I want to move on. So, so for the young people, I want you to visualize a ship leaving the dock, and just visualize that. And when you give up one job for the next job, you can't go back. You can't go back. And so if you fail at the new job, you're going to be out of a job. So that's sort of the challenge you face as you advance through your career. So, and I actually visualized that quite often when I was taking a leap, when I was going to a more senior position, because it's a challenge and you have to take it on. And I'm sure Pastor Jennifer visualized that when she came to Canada. The ship has left the dock, and right. there's no going back. You got to face that challenge. The other point I'm going to make. Post-secondary education is hard. At least for me, it was very hard. I got my accountant designation. I spent hours and hours and hours and hours at the dining room table, and it was hard. And advancing in my career was hard. As you take on a more senior position, you don't work 9 to 5. You've got to work 7 days a week sometimes. You've got to work nights. It's not easy. And so if you want to advance to higher positions, which makes your life more interesting, it is hard work. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that answers your question, or you want me to, I could talk forever if you want me to, but
no, that's
good.
That's
probably enough for now.
Jeremy or Eva or Michael or Christina, do you want to pick another set of questions that's from there, or come up with your own?
Can I just ask them like my own question?
Yeah.
So when you were like in high school or like just out of high school, did you think that you were going to be in the field that you are or were in?
I'll start with that.
Or like, what job did you or envision yourself being in?
Well, for a whole bunch of reasons, I barely made it out of high school, and then I spent 2 years in a ski resort in Alberta, and then at about 22 or 23, I grew up, and then I got serious. So I had a bit of a rocky start. I actually spent a year at a college in the business program and discovered I loved business, and that was sort of the start for me. But I was a late bloomer. I was probably 22 or 23 when I started getting serious. And I think I was 26 or 27 when I got my first big boy job. And I sort of went from there. It probably made me a better employee because I sort of had all the fun years. I got all that craziness out of my system, and I was prepared to settle down. Because as I said before, to be successful is hard work. And you've got to be really prepared to put your head down and work at it. So, does that answer your question? It's not a very good role model, but that was me.
Well, what did you learn from not going right to, what did you learn about yourself from not going right into post-secondary?
I was a great skier. I had a ski resort for 2. I was a great skier.
You honed in on that skill.
Yeah, I learned how to ski, and I learned to like beer, but we don't talk about that. And I met my girlfriend, who I've been married to for 44 years. So.
Oh, Debbie was in the picture for the skiing thing.
Oh yeah, that's where I met her, at the ski resort.
Oh my God!
Oh,
That.
cool.
Look at that.
I have met people and I don't want. I think going right to university from high school is a good thing. So don't take this the wrong way. I have met people in my career that went right from high school to university and never had this couple of wild years I had, and they, for whatever reason, they regretted not having that.
Yeah.
And I had it, so I never had to look back and say, "What if?" Because I did it, and then I got serious. So I don't know. That's a good role model, but.
Who supported you during that time? Did you work?
I worked.
To make a living?
Oh yeah, I was working in the accounting department of the Banff Springs Hotel.
Oh, okay.
And Debbie worked at the Banff Springs Hotel. Debbie worked at the bank in Banff.
Oh.
Oh yeah, no, I was self-supporting.
Yeah.
And when we got married, we had nothing, and no kids, and we just put our heads down and went from there.
I think that what Bob says is very true in terms of who you are when you're in high school. I think that now that I'm working again with teenagers in international college, knowing what you want at that young age is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's very difficult.
I finished high school and went to study straight into medical school and worked like crazy. It's just, you don't have a life when you're in medical school. I can say that at some point, I sometimes look back and say, hey, I threw all my young years away in a way, but I was never a party animal. I never was. I was more of an introvert, a nerdy nerd. So, but I can tell you that in high school, I did experience a lot of different things. And before high school, I actually skipped 1.5 years of schooling because I played volleyball for my country for 1.5 years. But in high school, I did try all kinds of things. I joined drama. I joined the dance club. I was in choir. We went singing to senior homes. I did all kinds of stuff. I had a blast in high school. I think it was the best time ever for me. Wow. And once I went into medical school, it was forget about everything, right? I do believe that people should have a chance to know more about themselves. Sometimes I think that if I had not gone straight into medical school and maybe done something else, I would have probably done something very different. And I think that it's really nice that here in Canada, for example, young people have so many choices and there's so much flexibility in the system. Back in Mexico, if you are a student, most of the times you will not have a nice or a flexible schedule to actually have a job. And students who work are really sacrificing themselves big time because the system does not allow that flexibility for people. So I've seen that here with my children. But no, if I answer that question, I mean, I went into medical school. I just followed my friend. And she knew what she wanted because she continued. She failed some courses. We got separated in the course, but she turned out into a gynecologist, surgeon, went on to oncology. She knew that that was her. And I did not. I enjoyed my career. I studied really hard. I had amazing experiences, but I found that for me, it was more the work with people in community health and education that really gave me satisfaction as a person. Opposite to working in a hospital, I was not comfortable in a hospital. So you discover, it's self-discovery, right? You don't know, many people don't know, I think, and most people don't know who they really are. I'm still searching. I'm still looking for things that I want to learn about myself. So I don't know.
And just to jump in, what Rosa Maria said, that speaks to the so-called fork in the road. You go down a pathway and then you have to turn right or you have to turn left or go straight ahead. And so your career oftentimes is a bit of a crooked stick because you get opportunities, and I never thought I'd like banking. It was a fabulous career.
Maureen, do you want to have a chance to answer Eva's question too? Do you remember what it was?
Is Maureen?
Yeah, Maureen.
Yeah, for
Oh, are you
me.
talking to me? Oh,
Yeah.
well, I was thinking that when I was in my first diploma program at nursing, so we got to try out different things too. And I remember I did do some community visits then, and I thought that was really interesting, not thinking that I would end up in it at the end of my career, but yeah. But yes, it's the satisfaction of working hard and accomplishing something is, yeah, nobody can ever take that away from you.
I agree with you.
Never be afraid of your failures because you always learn something. If you don't try, you won't fail, but you also won't find something that may fit you like a glove, like Bob was saying. Yeah. So then after I'd been working for a while, my kids were in elementary school, and I went back to get my degree program, and that opened, it just widened the horizon of what's out there in nursing, and I was introduced to research for the first time, and yeah, there's a lot of nurses that are researchers and are doing lots of amazing things too. And yeah, and then I got interested in, like I said, senior care. I worked for a seniors clinic for a while, and with an amazing team of social workers and therapists and nurse practitioners and gerontologists, and I learned so much.
I think what I want to take on from what Maureen has said about failing, I think that if you don't make mistakes, you don't really learn.
That's true.
I always tell my students, because students are like, I don't want to make a mistake, like they're writing an essay or preparing for a presentation or whatever they're doing. But what if I make a mistake? And I say, it'll be fantastic if you make mistakes. If you don't make mistakes, what's wrong with you?
That's right.
People are so afraid of having to be perfect. And then when you're a student, you're supposed to do this and supposed to do that. It's already hard enough growing up, And I don't know about you, but I tend to be really hard on myself. A lot of people are. And sometimes that deters us from taking risks because then you're afraid of what might happen. But the truth is, if you don't jump in, you'll never find out. And sometimes taking that fall and scraping your knees and scraping your heart will actually give you wonderful things in return. Yeah.
True.
That's true.
It's hard, but it's true.
Yeah. It's not easy. Of course it's not, but it's great.
It is great.
Yeah.
Do other people have a question you want to ask from the list or from the, we have time to do probably another question at least. What do you think, Jeremy or Michael, Christina?
I love life because
Michael,
of when I was a kid, I wanted to be a broadcaster or a public speaker. And then I got to know this guy through work, Gord Bowley, and he taught me into Toastmasters, and I've been there for 7 years, and I love every moment of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Michael, do you want to talk about how you ended up doing what your job was for many years? You want to?
How can I put this without being embarrassed?
You could just tell the straight up story. We all love you.
Okay. I love everybody anyhow. I have a learning disability, so I was put in a special needs class from grade 3 to grade 12. And then grade 12, you were put into a work readiness program. They prepared you for the work world, and they connected you with an employment for special needs service. So they found me my first job as a dishwasher, and then another dishwasher's job. And then I was tired of staring at the wall, so I went back to them, and they found Julie helped find me my job for 30 years. I went from New West to downtown, back and forth on the SkyTrain all day. I loved it. I loved being with people. Didn't matter if it was one person or 50 or whatever. It was just a great job, and I felt like I was part of their staff. They included me in everything.
What was this second job about, Michael? The one that you did for 30 years, what job was that?
I was a SkyTrain courier in the legal field.
Mm,
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
that's cool.
For law firms. Yeah.
Very important.
Everyone on the SkyTrain knew him.
Cool.
When I would ride the SkyTrain with Michael, he always had people talking to him. You did. You were a community builder. You still are now at your house, even though you can't go out, right?
Yeah.
I can go out of my
Great.
room, but I can't leave the building except if I'm with someone, and I have to be I have to wear my mask or whatever. But public speaking is a wonderful thing.
You know, Michael, I didn't know you wanted to do that when you were a lot younger, because you just started doing that after I came here. You've been doing it only 7 years.
Yeah.
Something new. It's a very risky thing. You know, speaking in front of people is like one of the top fears of most adults.
The night I started, the night I went to my first Toastmasters meeting, they got me up to speak, and they said, "Whoa, he's brilliant. He's perfect." Because I was in the public eye, so it was no problem to get up in front of people and speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After
Yeah.
all those years. Mhm.
Well, that is the gift. Not everybody has it.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I met a whole pile of people from all over the world.
Well done. Nicely done. When I tell my students that I was really shy when I was young, they don't believe me, right?
They don't believe me either. I was
No,
shocked.
they don't believe me that I was shy. My mom would stop the car and say, "I cannot find parking. Can you please knock on that door and give them this package? It's a teacher. He needs this and that." It was
wouldn't do it?
impossible for me. Like, no, right? And so I say, "No, that's not true." I say, "Yeah, I couldn't talk to just anybody, and I'm still shy in some ways. I'm very open and outgoing, but there's still things that are really hard for me." But when you're teaching, you just, right? I think it's like performers, I suppose, you know, that when singers and performers say that every time they step on the stage, they're still nervous. I get
Yeah.
nervous too, but then it happens. Yeah. Well done, Michael. Congrats on that.
Yeah, Michael.
I wanted to be a nurse.
Oh, you would have been wonderful.
I volunteered at road climbing for 12 years.
Oh,
And
you
I
did.
met my girlfriend, Vicky.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Great.
Well, maybe we could ask another question about I don't know, when you look at that list about the pandemic, how's the pandemic impacted your work, or how does your work make a difference in the world? What keeps you going? Maureen and Bob are retired, so they don't have to have something that keeps them going now, but you could talk about when you were working. Or maybe you still need something now. I don't know.
Well, you still have to do things when you retire. You can't just sit around watching TV all day. The question, make a difference in the world. I mean, I was involved in business, which is capitalism. I guess I would answer that by lending money to companies. It enabled them to stay in business, which created employment, and people got a salary, and they were able to buy food and buy homes and prosper in the world. So I guess that would be the way I would look at it. It's very different than what Maureen and Rosa Maria do, because they're more, helping people. So I was a hard capitalist. What I did was totally focused on making money and making profit, but it did create employment and got people jobs and allowed them to live a nice life, I hope.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I think that independently of what job you do, at least, I don't know, from my point of view, I'm a romantic, right? So I think for me, it's like if you can make a difference, even if it's a tiny difference, and that's one of the things that moves me to work. If I can make a difference in people's lives, sometimes I think it's too vain to consider that, but I remember when I went into teacher training, specifically that for me, the idea of the multiplying effect, thinking that if I can touch one future teacher in a good way, one tiny thing, how many lives will this teacher actually touch?
Yeah.
So for me, that was very valuable. And when I moved to Canada, I wasn't able to do teacher training. I can go to conferences and do that, but I didn't have the courage to maybe start my own teacher training business, whatever. So I went back to teaching English as a second language and then teaching academic English. And I must confess that in the beginning, I felt I was betraying my principles because I was not touching more people. And it took me a while to fall in love with my career again. To see my students flourish and grow. I mean, that part I always enjoy, but at the beginning, I felt like I was not doing what I was supposed to do, because I did my master's because I got a scholarship, and I felt an obligation to pay forward, right? By being a teacher trainer back in Mexico.
Could you do that here in Canada if you had it?
I can. I've participated in conferences, given workshops. And actually I'm still invited. I just recently gave a workshop online for some teachers back in Mexico, which really made me really happy.
Yeah.
But I think I got a bit lazy or I just got trapped in my in all the money I owe now that I bought a condo. So I have to be very careful with where my my money goes. So I have to be maybe less of a romantic and more of a practical person and respond to what life has presented and what decisions I've made, right? If I decided to buy property, even if it's small, because for me, this is what I'm leaving my kids here in Canada, well, then it's different. And I was never business oriented. I really admire people who can start their own business. I've never had that in my bones. I think that you're born with that. I really think that you are born entrepreneur. That's what I think. I really admire people who have the courage to go out and do their own thing. Because in general, I'm a follower and I'm a really good follower. But yeah, going back to working and what kept me going. Yeah. Really quickly, the pandemic has hit me really hard. I miss the classroom like crazy. I've had to develop tons of skills and design materials like crazy to teach online. I think I'm getting better. I hope my students are benefiting again from the things that I've learned and how I can help them with it. But I'm a social animal. I miss the physical contact and the eye contact and being with students a lot. It's been really hard for me. Yeah. But I have different types of learners. Learners who are really shy and have a really hard time being in a classroom are like fish in the water on Zoom. They're fine.
Yeah.
They're okay. So we all have to learn to appreciate our strengths and our weaknesses, right? And work from there.
Maureen, did you want to respond as well?
Well, I only worked a few months at the start of the pandemic till July. So I did get a chance to explore working from home a little bit, and that was interesting. It's a different, and I can't imagine doing it with a bunch of kids around because you have to be pretty focused and plan your time so that these are your work hours, these are your break hours. Basically, our office was business as usual. We just had more screening questions to ask people when we went out. We had to carry more our masks around and our PPE. Yeah, but pretty much it was business as usual. Just another layer of things to get through and think about.
Thank you all for taking time. Jeremy, do you have, Jeremy or Eva, you have one last question or comment that you want to make? People?
I have a question that I was just kind of curious. It's out of like complete curiosity. What is like the hardest thing that you had to like encounter, or like a decision that you had to make in work, I guess?
Wow.
And then maybe a follow-up is like, how did your faith help or not help you with that? Like with that biggest challenge, whatever that is.
That's a tough one.
That is
Yeah.
a big question.
Well, I'll jump in. I spent the last 10 years of my career managing my own bank branch, and managing people. In some ways, it was most rewarding, but it was also the hardest. I'd never do it again. It's a very, very, very tough job, and so that was hard. And you know, we had to fire a couple of people along the way, and yeah, it's hard. That was really hard. Just working as a commercial lender, you work for yourself. That's easy, but it's dealing with people that's very hard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially in a branch. In my branch, you had people that made lots of money, and you had people that made not so much money. And the ones that didn't make a lot of money didn't understand why the people that made lots of money made lots of money. So it was managing expectations.
Yeah.
And they never appreciated how hard it was for the people that made lots of money to make lots of money.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that they had a bullseye on their head, and if they didn't produce, they were let go. So, anyways, that was very. My last 10 years, I did that, and I was quite happy to leave it.
Yeah.
I got enough.
I did spend a couple of years as an academic coordinator in a language center back in Mexico, and then also a year and a half as a coordinator for a BA program. So I was in charge of hiring teachers, supervising the work, letting people go. Man, that was hard.
It's hard.
That was really hard. And sometimes it was for the best. Some people, very, very few of them eventually contacted me maybe later and told me, you did the best thing that you could have done for me because I discovered I had this other talent and my life is great. And other people probably want to kill you right there and they'll never talk to you again. That was really hard because as a working mom, I know what it means when somebody takes a breath, right, out away.
Very difficult.
I think that the hardest thing for me was being fair. And I know that I wasn't always fair, probably. I was doing what I could with what I had. So yeah, staying objective and doing the right thing. And sometimes seeing people that were doing a lousy job but stayed because they were unionized or full-time something. And oh, I hated their guts. But I had to work with them and smile and be civil and be professional. That was tough. That was tough. That's when you really are put to the test because you don't always work with the people that you like and you don't always find fairness at work. And you have to serve those waters and still be who you are. Stay true to yourself. That's really hard.
Yeah, that is. One of the things I did like about my job was we had fair bit of autonomy, but talking about challenges, I think the biggest challenge, especially in the last 5 years or so, was the rapid pace of change that they were putting us through and the short-staffed.
Very hard.
So yeah, and it just burnt a lot of us out. And so, yeah, watching my colleagues too going through the distress that we all went through when we couldn't meet people's needs and do what we but I always did give 110% all the time. So at least I felt like I was doing the best I could.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Can I make one final point?
Yeah.
Before we leave, and this is to Jeremy and to Eva. So in my last job, I hired a lot of people, and not a lot of people, but part of my job was hiring and mentoring and promoting and that sort of stuff. And to be a commercial lender in a bank, you need a finance degree. And so I used to say to these people that we hired with their finance degrees, all a degree got you was a job. It's not going to guarantee you promotion. It's not going to guarantee you success. It simply got you a job. It's what my CGA did for me. It got me a job. How you progress in a company is what you got to take that as a building block and build on it and work really hard. So if you go into a job and you got a finance degree and you walk in and say, look at me, I'm great, I've got a finance degree. Well, everybody has a finance degree. And to differentiate yourself in advance, you have to work really, really hard and to be successful. So don't just take it as that. University is hard, but it's your first step.
Mm.
If you want to be successful, you gotta put the effort in.
Yeah.
Anne Marie is nodding as well because it's true.
Yeah,
Very
totally
true.
Mm-hmm.
This is, like I said, the first time we've tried this on Zoom, and I really appreciate all of you showing up, especially Bahab, Rosa Maria, and Maureen, and sharing your lives. And great questions from you two, Eva and Jeremy. Thank you for participating. I like I said, I have recorded this, and what I wanted to do is offer just a scripture and a prayer about people in vocations, because I'm thinking about it's just a challenging time for many people. And trust that as you move into, both Bob and Maureen moving into this new space of, well, not Bob new so much, but retirement.
4 years.
What'd you call it?
I've been retired for 4 years.
Yeah, it's not
It's
new.
been 4 years since I retired.
But moving into this new, like I call it the third stage of life, right? Trying to figure out what you can offer. You have a lot to offer, and I'm grateful that you're willing to share these stories with young people as they try to figure out what they have to offer. I'm just going to share a couple verses from Isaiah 41 that where Isaiah speaks about God's call to each of us. God says, "You are my servant." And I would say, no matter what you're doing, you are a servant of God in whatever place. And some of the language that you used around it was having integrity and knowing who you are and staying true to who you are. And compassion as you're in the place of power, resulting in firing people, hiring people, all that kind of thing. So Isaiah says, "I have chosen you and not cast you off. Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be afraid, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will uphold you. I will uphold you. I will help you with my victorious right hand." And just close with this prayer for all of us. Oh God, give us grace to set a good example to all among whom we live, to be just and true in all our dealings, to be conscientious in the discharge of all of our responsibilities, gracious and generous and kind towards all, so that the mind of Jesus Christ may be formed in us and all may know that we are your followers. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Then
Very good.
Thank you all. So I'm gonna send this recording out to the young people who did not have a chance to hear you. And if you're all right with it, I might even just post it on our newsletter next week so others could join in and hear what they missed. Are you all right with that?